out this evening, everyone will still be pleasant because it's a pretty crowded room. My reason for being in this company is a very simple one. I'm a doctor. I'm not sure how Barbara and Chad and Mary got into it, but I said, what can I do to help my patients? And I had someone come along and tell me that there was a product that was being promoted that supposedly is going to be a revolutionary product in terms of its actions on the body. And that maybe the whole world ought to be on it. And so I took a look at him and I said, get out of here, Satan, I don't want to hear you anymore. But he was persistent. Yeah, I'm talking about you. He was persistent, so George Capote came back to me and said, look, what if I got you some science? And I said, well, if you got me some science, I will, at least because you came back, I will go read it. And I did. By the time I got through the next 2 or 3 months of reading the papers that I read, I was very, very excited. I was very, very excited because Dr. Blasini and I, he's a rheumatologist, and I work on problems every day that are called inflammatory in nature. And we all know that that's the basis of all disease processes. So I'm going to give you a little primer on disease. It starts this way. You take a cell which has a nucleus. This is the governing body of this cell. And that nucleus you might want to consider as being the general. And inside the cell are a bunch of organelles, or little organs, that are manufacturing for us the things we need. And inside the nucleus are little energy things called mitochondria. And these mitochondria need energy to operate, and they get it from the one thing everybody in this room has in common: oxygen. All of you are breathing, therefore all of you and I are the same. The oxygen is combusted, and when it's combusted, it produces what are called free radicals. And free radicals are the byproduct of the utilization of oxygen in the cell. Now, that is the basis of all disease. The day you were conceived, you started getting mom's blood. God bless her, we all love our mother. But she also had free radicals in her blood. So we started out, and this was an epiphany to me, Raphael, when I started reading that endothelial dysfunction. That's when the lining of an artery is not working right, and they found it in the fetus. And I said, how can that be? Until I understood this process. Well, if you have an injury that occurs to any organ in our body, you get a reaction, and that reaction is called inflammation. So I'll write that word down for you because you read about it in the press all the time. And what is inflammation to us doctors? Inflammation is the immune system's or the body's response to the injury caused by a free radical. So if this guy, this unstable side product of breathing of oxygen, of combusting our food and combusting our intake of oxygen, is not neutralized immediately, it attaches any place it can. It doesn't care who it dances with. It'll go to the dance and dance with anybody, as long as they'll put their arms around them. So, in our cells, we have things called antioxidants being produced. Antioxidants being produced by these little organelles in here, which for the moment I'll call factories. And they're producing antioxidants in huge numbers so that we can neutralize the free radicals. But now think about it. We start out with a cell full of antioxidants and a tiny, tiny little bit of inflammation because we had it from mom. But as we go through life, this happens very, very slowly but progressively. And so at a point in time, when we reverse the abundance of antioxidants because the general sent out a message and said, make anti-inflammatories. We now have a situation with which we have a huge problem because we're not going to stop breathing until we die. And so we're going to keep combusting food.